about the UB Regional Institute. So we're a research center under the School of Architecture and Planning. We focus on urban planning and public policy, and we've been fortunate enough to focus with a lot of teams on economic development in the region since 2011. And we'll talk through some of those initiatives and some of the investments that have been going on, especially in the public sector, and the context of how those overlay with some of the opportunity zones. So just a little bit about our region. So our region is, the image is finally changing for the better. So things like New York Times naming us as one of the 52 places to go, with a reporter saying, Buffalo went from a place I didn't think about ever to someplace I would consider moving. So those are great transitional stories for us to be making on the national scene, and something that we really needed for our own self-image as well. So we've been on a steady course to implement strategies that are core to rebuilding the regional economy, and I'll talk a little bit about those, the application of those within the opportunity zones areas. So placemaking and smart growth, it's about keeping and attracting people, innovation and entrepreneurship to enhance the ecosystem and culture of new growth in our region, developing our workforce and building the labor pool, and focusing on regional strengths in the tradable sectors, including manufacturing, health and life sciences, and tourism. So true renaissance only happens when we all work together. So the most catalytic moments that we've seen is when public, private, and not-for-profit sectors all come together, they focus their efforts, and they invest the funding and the programming and community energy. So Bruce Katz will never admit it, but I literally wouldn't be standing here talking to you about this today if it wasn't for Bruce. So someday I'll write the book, When Bruce Katz Came to Town. I think we needed, so I'll talk a little bit about the influence that came to why we even started talking in a more concerted way about regional economies. A lot of that had to do with the influence of Bruce coming to town. We certainly needed his brain, but we needed the national expert who believed in us and inspired us even when we didn't believe in ourselves. And in the early days in 2010, he was there for us and brought us to where we are. He's the person who pushed for the decentralized approach with Governor Cuomo and the Regional Economic Development Council approach. And we had leaders, Howard Zemsky and Satish Tripathi, in the early days that embraced that opportunity and capitalized on that moment. And I'm going to talk about some moments in time that we've been experiencing to do regional planning together. So they focused on the public, the private, and the community voices all being at the table at the same time. We've had different tables over the years. This was the most important table for us to put together in 2011. So Brookings and McKinsey and UBRI built this also for the Buffalo Billion Plan. And Bruce also helped make the governor convinced that the Buffalo Billion was the way to go. So when you meet Bruce and talk to Bruce and you hear from Bruce, he's like, think big, do big. So when you talk to Governor Cuomo, who also has a very similar mentality, he said, when you want to make a commitment to Buffalo, it's like billion with a B. So you have to go big, think big, and really empower the region to make strategic decisions for themselves. And we needed that moment in time in 2010 and 2011 to get to where we were with Buffalo Billion. So a lot of credit there. We also need Mayors Brown and Deister and the county executive to embrace that approach and demonstrate their leadership. And then the governor came back several years later in 2015 and said, Buffalo Billion Phase 2. When we called it Buffalo Billion 2, we thought it was going to be another billion, but it was $500 million. Still fabulous. But that gave us the chance to dig back into the granular approach that we really wanted to do in round one that we didn't necessarily get to. So now we're starting to see the traction of these investments, and I'll take you through some of that. And it's spurring that public and private investment, co-investment together, and it's building on our strengths to move things forward. And the scale is changing in our region. So Buffalo Billion with a B, $100 million of commitment from Wilson Foundation to the waterfront park, the Centennial Park, and the trails and connectors. those are unimaginable scales for us as a region. Catalytic for us to think bigger, dream bigger, do bigger. I think those are really important things for us to focus on. And that's that moment in time that we haven't had, but we have to embrace it and we have to stay together and move forward together. So people ask me all the time, what's the secret sauce in Buffalo? There's a lot of upstate regions who ask us that question. So there are 4 things that had to come together for us to sort of reach this point. One was planning. So we had a really solid foundation of planning in our community. Lots of people say best planned city in the world. Some of that goes back to the 1800s. But then you have people like my boss, Dean Shibley, who had been working on great foundational plans for our region. But those were plans that didn't have any resources behind it. So they were fabulous plans that could have easily sat on a shelf. But when that catalytic moment came of resource, we had a great foundation of plans to build on. So that was 1. 2, bravery and leadership. And it was a brave moment that had to happen. Everyone had to put egos aside. We had to come together as a community. We had to embrace that moment and say, we're going to have to make tough decisions. We have to prioritize together. And when you're talking about that level of resource, those are hard decisions to make and hard decisions to have, discussions to have as a community. And then 3, this is big, resource, right? So that the best plans sit on a shelf without the resources. So we needed to have the investment in that time. And 4 is implementers. So you have to have tireless teams of people who can actually implement these programs. So we could come up with fabulous plans, we could resource those plans, but if you don't have people who can tirelessly implement those things, and believe me, I have way more gray now than I did 10 years ago, those moments were really important for us to come together. So let's talk a little bit about the factors and strategies that got us here. So placemaking is really about the built environment, emphasizing accessible job centers, sustainable infrastructure, vibrant and livable communities, and this is the brave moment for us was to say we can't sprawl without growth anymore. So our population was declining, and we were still taking up more land mass than ever. We were sprawling without growth, which is just an unhealthy, unsustainable pattern for us to have. So we had to build a comprehensive network of entrepreneurial support. We need new businesses to catalyze the economy, and we need commercialization and new entrepreneurial growth, and a culture of risk and being comfortable with that new culture, which was hard for us as a community. We've been growing the network of training programs that provide opportunities for everyone, people, and the labor force is what drives the economy. So targeted job training and education, it ensures that jobs in high-paying, in-demand, tradable sectors are filled in an equitable way, and that's been a focus from the beginning. And obviously, we've got some amazing tourism assets here, and those products are increasing visitor spending and expands the sector's employment and wages as well. And then we talked a little bit about tradable sectors. It's about exporting goods and services, it's about higher wages and economic growth. And then we have, unique health and life sciences assets generating that commercial impact for us. So an example like Northland, where we are right now, was one that cut across all of those strategies, which is best case scenario as we were planning together. So it's placemaking, specifically on an East Side corridor. It's partnering with the City of Buffalo and Budsy on the planning and infrastructure that it took to get there. It's collaborative workforce development programs that partner SUNY, not-for-profits including Catholic Charities, Goodwill, Buffalo Urban League, with the public sector to deliver a comprehensive approach to filling the manufacturing pipeline and the focus on innovation as well, with Buffalo Manufacturing Works moving in. So this creates a new hub and a new energy of manufacturing focused on the east side. That was very intentional, and then you have to have a fabulous leader like Stephen Tucker, a tireless leader, that's exactly what you need to actually implement a new model of growth and implementation. So just a little bit about the east side. So So this is an example of what happens when we all come together, we work with the community on producing a plan, and then we co-invest as a community as well. So we have 4 corridors and 9 target areas within those corridors that we're focused on, and a community ready to implement real change in those focused areas. So there was $65 million in capital funding from Buffalo Billion at ESD, and the City of Buffalo and Mayor Brown's team working on matching infrastructure investments in those same areas, and more than $8 million in capacity building investment in the community-based organizations, the people doing the work and living on the east side every day, from 10 funders. So it's actually 11 funders. So it's 6 banks and 5 foundations. So 5-Star, M&T, Evans, Northwest, First Niagara, and Key Bank, with the foundations Western New York, Wilson, John R. O'Shea, Community Foundation, and Blunt, all joining together, coming to the same table, and reinforcing what the community is doing and investing in it together. So another unique moment in time. So people ask me all the time, is the region really doing better? So some people complain that it's not moving fast enough, that our numbers are not growing fast enough, or it's just a little too anemic for people. But we have to look at the economy in context. So we shouldn't compare ourselves to places like Boston or New York City or San Francisco. Not comparable. Even places that are comparable, the set of factors that they have is just too different from what we have in Buffalo. So let's just take a quick look at, we should compare ourselves to ourselves as an economy and say, are we doing better? So we had big holes to dig out of before we ever made progress, and people have to remember that when they say, oh, growth is too anemic. We get it, but we had to fill that hole before we could actually start building again. So we just want to take a quick look at that. So Western New York is rebounding and adding jobs, wages, and firms after years of losing and limited growth patterns. So you can see that we had to really bounce back in a big way. We were losing thousands of young people, and now we're gaining. So again, dug out of the hole, now we're starting to grow. And we're seeing some of the lowest unemployment rates that we've had, and a significant increase in new hires' wages. We're seeing signs of confidence in the economy as well and in the market. So people want to do business here. People want to spend here and visit as well, and increase visitations to our tourism assets. Our real estate market is growing and getting stronger, and we're unlocking the potential for private development here with more than $1 billion invested in the Buffalo development from each year from 2011 to 2016, which is 9 times higher than the average investment from the earlier years. So let's just look at the opportunity zones themselves here. So we have 43 census tracts in Western New York that are designated opportunity zones. Over half of these are in Erie County. This includes 17 tracts in Buffalo, 10 are on the east side, others are in Black Rock, the Central Business District in South Buffalo, and every tract along the Buffalo River waterfront and the waterfronts of Lackawanna and the town of Tonawanda. So other opportunity zones in the commercial district along Niagara Falls Boulevard by the Boulevard Mall, in Amherst, and the downtowns of Tonawanda and North Tonawanda. In Niagara County, we have 5 tracts in Niagara Falls that are designated, and the downtown and nearly all of the city's waterfronts. In Chautauqua, it's the villages of Dunkirk and Fredonia, downtown Jamestown, the village of Belknap, and the town of Ellicott. In Cattaraugus, it's the city of Bullion and a tract that intersects Salamanca, and the village of Little Valley and the surrounding area. And in Allegheny, it's the villages of Alfred and Wellsville and a large tract of the surrounding neighborhoods around there. So just a little bit about population change. So the regional population has been the loss has been leveling off. But you do see some declines by over 3% in those opportunity zones since 2010. And the recent population decline in these tracts show that opportunity zones could benefit from further investments. And because of their strategic location, revitalizing those opportunity zones could benefit the entire region and attract people back to those places. So a little about the socioeconomic overview. So overall, the region's opportunity zones, understandably, have lower incomes, higher rates of poverty, and lower shares of college-educated adults. Based on the selection process, there's sort of no surprises in these numbers. We've got a lot of large employers and a lot of assets to build on in those zones. So a lot of the region's top employers fall within the opportunity zones, including in those target industries that we've been talking about: manufacturing, tourism, health and life sciences. A lot of those major players are in downtown Buffalo and the surrounding suburbs, and places like the medical campus. So just a little bit about the overlay of other strategic areas to think about as far as investment, and we'll start off with the brownfield opportunity areas, the BOAs. So the BOA is administered by the New York Department of State. It's a community-driven planning process. So again, from the ground up, and it's about reactivating brownfields and spurring the investment in the surrounding neighborhoods. And every BOA overlaps with the opportunity zones in our area. And this includes 4 in Buffalo, 2 in Jamestown, 1 in Dunkirk, North Tonawanda, Niagara Falls, Lockport, and Olean. So these are, good overlap investments and strategic areas to think about. So another strategy to think about is the LWRP, the Local Waterfront Revitalization Program, another place-based revitalization program offered through New York State with established planning boundaries that overlap a lot of the opportunity zones. So another community-based planning piece with, a focus on protecting water resources and enhancing waterfront access. So the LWRP becomes a roadmap for future development and can help municipalities access state permitting, additional funding, and other technical assistance. So opportunity zones align with a lot of the LWRPs, as you can see from the map, and this is another place for more openings for investors to think about the collaboration of how to invest in the waterfront. Just a few more state programs offered through the Regional Economic Development Council that have some overlay. The first is the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the DRI. So this program selects communities to receive $10 million to undertake community planning processes and implement key projects focused on downtowns and village centers. So since 2016, 3 cities have been selected for DRI. And some of them, overlap in those opportunity zones. So Lockport, Olean, and Jamestown. There's a new announcement coming out any second. So stay tuned for that. So and those are great places that are receiving a lot of focus and investment. And then we also had the Western New York Smart Growth Community Fund, which was a sort of scaled down version, up to $2.5 million of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. And people who have received those funds are Alfred in Allegheny County, Dunkirk and Jamestown and Chautauqua, Lackawanna, and the Twin Cities of the Tonawandas. So a lot of these dedicated state funds promote placemaking in these communities and sort of make things even more targeted and ripe for growth. So the last state program I'll talk about is Buffalo Billion. This focuses on the city of Buffalo and city of Niagara Falls proper. A lot of you know this uses a combination of state grants and tax breaks to spur economic development around those strategic areas that we talked about, and several place-based incentive programs align with the opportunity zones as well. So one is the Better Buffalo Fund. So this incentivizes development in strategic areas through 2 programs: Main Streets Initiative, so that's a commercial corridor redevelopment strategy, and transit-oriented development. So there are 46 Better Buffalo Fund projects revitalizing these corridors right now, places like Main Street, Niagara Street, Grant Street. And then investments through the Buffalo Billion are also creating some housing opportunities through the Buffalo Neighborhood Stabilization Fund and revitalizing those east side corridors that we talked about, and then continuing to transform the Northland corridor here as well. So let's talk a little bit about early impact. So looking at these strategic areas can be telling. So it's important to know where other investments are taking place. and how it relates to the Opportunity Zone. This map overlays the recent public and private investments in Buffalo and Niagara Falls with the Opportunity Zones. So the majority of these investments do fall within those Opportunity Zones. So the blue dots on the map show the Buffalo billion investments, and over half of those fall within the Opportunity Zones. Even more interesting is the concentration of private investments in those Opportunity Zones. So this is shown by the blue to white background in the map, with lighter, brighter areas showing those places where private investment is happening and is heavily concentrated. So almost 3/4 of all those private dollars invested in Buffalo and Niagara Falls are in those Opportunity Zones with the overlay. So recent investments reveal another potential pathway for investors to build off of this momentum. And going forward, going one step further, this map also provides the potential for public programs to spur private investments in Western New York. So in the billion, this map shows that over 97% of private investments fall within 1 mile of where the Buffalo billion investments were happening. So it's really not hard to imagine that aligning all of these strategies can have catalytic impact. So, we're not done yet. When people ask, well, when are you going to take a vacation? I don't know if they're trying to tell me something, but when you're in a place where you don't want to miss a thing, and you feel like you're in this incredible momentum and moment of time, you can rest later. And I think that's where we are as a community. We have to keep coming together. We have to keep proactively planning together. And now is our time in Buffalo. And I look forward to working with all of you to help plan and implement the next phases. And I think this Opportunity Zone just represents another catalytic potential moment in time for us to capitalize on all the momentum that we already have going. Thank you very much.